Hey Nick, Sean Spicer. I understand there's some controversy brewing about how many subscribers you have on YouTube. You have more subscribers than anybody. And it's probably the biggest, largest YouTube subscription that anybody's had. But also, it's not numbers that matter, Nick. And I know everyone's going to quibble over this, but it's content, it's quality, and your subscribers are amazing. They're great. They're high quality subscribers, and that's really what you have to look at. Don't just focus on the numbers. I mean, if people are spewing a bunch of fake news, just don't get in the mud. They're amazing folks. Their engagement, the way that they like the videos. Anyway, I hope this puts this to the end. I hope that this controversy is over, and we know who the real YouTube subscriber champ is, and it's you, Nick.
Hello, one and all. 𝐒𝐨𝐿 is not here, so we will close that just so that we don't get confused. I'm flying solo. He may or may not show up. We shall see. I hope he does. Commander Macmillan is going to be absent at least for a couple of weeks, so it'll be 𝐒𝐿 and myself. I got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. We could talk about what you guys want to talk about. This is downtime. It's our much more casual hang. We got the fireplace going. The three things that I was thinking that really is worth talking about. Trump just pled not guilty to election interference, and there's been a lot of confusion about that. So I think we did mention that once before, but if people are still confused about what this means in relation to there's so many indictments to juggle. It's just sort of like I get the confuse. I've been confused several times about this, but the superseding indictment is not on the indictment that Cannon threw out. The spying one, which is still on appeal. This one was simply redefined to fit the parameters of the new immunity decision made by the U.S. Supreme Court, which I'm actually not entirely in disagreement with their decision, as long as it's not interpreted too broadly. I didn't like the fact that it maybe let Trump get away with some stuff, but having said that, it really Jack Smith made it didn't affect the indictment very much at all. It's just like, okay, while he was in his official capacity, so while he was inside the White House, anything he did there, they're not going after him for his campaign where he said Mike Pence better do the right thing or else, that still counts. So not much has been changed in that regard. So that's worth talking about, but he just pled pled not guilty to that through his lawyer, and so that's all back on. It's not going to get resolved before the election, so it's just one more list of things. The other thing, I've been I'll get to one of the other quote smaller ones. The parents of the school shooter, at least not the parents, the father of the school shooter, has just been indicted. He has been indicted on, and this is interesting. I'm rather curious to understand, and we're going to talk about indictments in just 1 second. But he's been indicted on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, which strikes me as 2 counts too few, but okay. 2 counts of second-degree murder. Wow, I'd like to see that one. And 8 counts of cruelty to children. Now, so in the legal system, if you watch Law and Order, which most people will tell you is like, that's all I know of the legal system, you would think that 90% of indictments end in a trial, and then there's, a guilty or not guilty plea. And 95% of indictments in the U.S. end in a plea deal of some kind. And in order to get the best plea deal they can, DAs usually hit with the highest charges even remotely possible. Even if they can't really win them in court, they'll put them. Now, it may be that there's a way to do second-degree murder. I would assume it's for the 2 teachers who were killed. Second-degree murder is usually, and not every state recognizes it this way, but this state appears to. First-degree murder is murder with malice aforethought. You planned it. You decided, yeah, I'm gonna kill this person. You go off and you go do that. That is first-degree murder. Murder in the second is an act of passion or something where it's just like you just found out you got cut out of the will. You pull out the gun and you blow the guy's head off. Something like that. You didn't plan it. You didn't sit there and wake up that morning saying you were going to do it. But actually, the most common example is guy comes home early, finds his wife and another person in bed with her, kills them both. Okay, that's murder 2. I have no idea how you're going to get this guy on murder 2, but they put it in the indictment. My suspicion is it's there so that they've got room to navigate down, say, okay, we'll bring it down. If you give us a plea deal, we'll drop those 2, or we'll put both of them down to manslaughter, because this guy wasn't even there. The father was not there. So I have no idea how. Either that or they've got something I don't know about. But the murder 2 is almost laughable. And I shouldn't be laughing because actually, and this is really important, it is really nice to start to see a change in our culture of indicting the parents when something like this happens. In Time has covered way too many of these, so many that for the most part we don't cover them anymore unless they are among the biggest to happen in this country. I don't have the endurance to cover them anymore, to sit here and try to explain or justify how this happens in this country. So, and there isn't a Republican alive for the most part. I know somebody's going to correct me on this, but for the most part, there isn't a Republican alive that likes these and wants there to be more of them and wouldn't like to see them stopped. The disagreement is how best to stop them. That I've seen most of the Republican positions are, well, the best way to stop it is any way other than the one you're recommending. So it's not taking away guns. If you're recommending taking away guns, oh, well, it's a mental health issue. Oh, okay, let's give everybody free mental health, access, so that people who have mental health problems and might want to commit a school shooting aren't going to do that. Well, no, you can't do that. That's socialism, and who's going to pay for it? That's not. Okay. Let's hold the parents accountable when the kid gets the gun out of the what? No, you can't. Oh no, you can't hold people accountable. So it doesn't matter what you propose. I do believe conservatives, obviously, they're human beings. They don't want to see more of this, but they have no interest in any of the solutions and have never come up with one themselves. All they can do is sit and tear down everybody else's. Now, boom, you're indicting the guy. I think I'm cautiously excited that we're witnessing a revolution in our approach to this that will dramatically reduce this. I don't think this is the solution, but I think it's a real healthy start. Because if you make the people who make the guns available, if you hold them accountable, this is going to happen a lot less frequently. It's not going to stop it, but I think it's going to make a dent. So I did not mean to laugh, but just in terms of somebody who has a reasonable familiarity with the law, layman nonetheless. I'm sitting there going, how on earth are you justifying murder 2 on the guy? So one of two things has to be true. Either they've got something big on him that nobody knows, which I find unlikely, but possible, or they're hitting him with murder 2 because they're going to... Oh, involuntary manslaughter is, by the way, murder 3. Murder 3 is you killed someone you did not mean to. So that's what's called involuntary manslaughter. But your actions resulted in the death of somebody. There is also voluntary manslaughter in some states. It depends. But he's getting 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. I have to believe that the murder 2 is going to be reduced as it's just a little strange to see that there. We'll learn more, but for those of you who are sort of interested in what's going on and what to make of this indictment, now the father's been indicted. The abuse of children is another interesting one. I assume it's the victims. The victims are already covered by manslaughter and or murder 2. You can add more if you'd like, and if you think the punishment isn't going to be sufficient. I'm curious if there's something else going on with this man that we are unaware of, and that perhaps was he abusive to his son. I don't know. But I almost don't want to say that because I don't want to cause speculation and have people sit there and say, oh my God, I bet you he was. I haven't a clue. It just stands out. I'm sitting there going, like, normally the charges are murder and they leave it at that unless they're really out to get you. And I don't think they're out to get this guy. I don't think they think he's a master criminal. So somebody's upset about something that we don't know about, or they're really just... They want to make sure they get him, so they're throwing in everything they can, and they'll, knowing that they'll negotiate it down. So that's what we're looking at there. I'm going to bring up one other thing, and if you guys have any questions in the meantime that you want to talk about, we can talk about it. This is turning a little bit more into one of our news programs, but what the hey? There's still a nice fireplace going, and either that or I'll narrate something. I'll just create a story and narrate. I don't know. Well, we could do Thurber. I could do readings from Thurber. Not that I'm trying to borrow from Keith Olbermann, but that actually wasn't a bad idea. All right, Russian interference. There has been a noticeable lack of any mention of Russian interference this time around. Last year was certainly less than it was the year before. In 2016, or last cycle, 2016, it was everywhere, and we knew about it. And we talked about it for months, like 6 months beforehand. We knew what they were doing. We knew that they were hedging their bets and putting money into both sides, but it was very clear they wanted Trump to win. And this will bring you all to my view that Paul Ryan was president for Trump's first election, not Donald J. Trump. It was Paul Ryan. I don't think that we should go back and rewrite. It would be nice to invalidate everything Trump did, but it was Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan was president of the United States. I'm sorry, I'm going to stand by that. Why? Real simple. Obama said that the Russian interference in 2016 was insufficient to sway the election one way or another. That belies common sense. Hillary Clinton won by... she actually won the popular vote. And when you take a look at specific districts that if they had flipped, would have given her the Electoral College and should have won, in those districts she was short... If you pick the right districts, she was short by maybe a couple thousand votes. So she lost by a couple thousand votes. So now the question is, was the Russian interference significant enough in those districts to cause 1,000 votes to flip? I have zero doubt in my mind it was. Of course it was. We know how much it was. And it was one of those things. I remember the day I learned how to... I just learned to tell when Obama's lying. I can tell, and it's not one of those. I can't do it with every president. I can't do it with even most people I know in my own life. But I worked on the campaign. I listened to every speech he ever did. Every debate and I remember one time he was debating Hillary Clinton, and she said there would be she admitted there would be a mandate under her program, but that it was the only way to do it, and that Obama would need a mandate as well to do the Obamacare. And he goes, nope, my plan doesn't have it. And I was just like, oh shit, that's a lie. And I'd never even considered the mandates. I'd always believed him when he said there'd be no mandate. And when he said it, there was something about the tenor. There was something about how he responded. It's like a tell in poker. I knew he was lying. When he told Assad, if you use chemical weapons, that's a red line. I'm sitting there going, oh shit, he's lying. Oh, I hope I'm the only one who could tell he's lying. No, Assad could tell he was lying too. So when Obama said that this didn't influence the election, I was just like, oh, you're lying. And I can tell that logically, but I can also just hear it in your voice. So we found out from the CIA 2 years later that sure enough, they had informed him that it was sufficient. Hillary won the election. That's it. If you remove the Russian interference, Hillary won the election. Here's the problem. If you're Barack Obama, you've been told this by the CIA, what are you going to do about it? You can potentially have the VP, which would have been Biden, not certify the election. Or say that Hillary won, which we've already had many discussions on the legality of attempting to do any of this. And by this point, it's been reasonably well established you probably couldn't do that. But at any rate, even if you did, it would be an American president taking power from his opponent, who on paper appears to have won, and giving it to a political ally. That's a big no-no. In my view, there's only one thing you can do: invalidate the entire election. Have the vice president refuse to certify anything from anyone anywhere because you have conclusive evidence that the election was invalid. Say, look, we can hold another one, or let the states hold another one, or however you want to do it. But what that means is there's no president and there's no vice president on January 7th. None. Because the election, you cannot trust the results of the election. There was too much tampering. Okay, who becomes president? Speaker of the House. That was Paul Ryan. So the only legit legal president that I can see in the 2016 election was Paul Ryan. So having said all that, I don't think anyone's gonna I don't think that's going anywhere, but I stand by that argument. So why does it matter? Well, we've heard nothing about election interference this year, and I can't believe that they just stopped. I'm aware they're preoccupied with the war, but they were so successful in the past. Have they just stopped? We're learning over the last couple of days that not only have they not stopped, they've continued at a very significant pace investment in interfering in the U.S. election. How are they doing it then? And why haven't we really heard about it? Well, there's still some of the bots and stuff like that, but that's not really what they're doing at this point. They figured out a new strategy, and that is to buy off in one way or another, and we're going to talk about that in a second, legitimate media influencers whose opinions are of benefit to Russia, and just try to elevate those media influencers. This plan has a lot of upsides to it. You don't have to create a bot farm. You don't have to try to get people to follow your bots and to listen to what you say, and you don't have to try to instigate or do anything like that. You've already got a built-in influencer with a huge audience. Ostensibly, I think the biggest influencer had an audience of on YouTube, 1.4 million. 1.4 million subs, and far right wing, and very much a supporter of Trump. And they say, well, if we can cause these guys, if we can amplify their voices, that's a much better bang for your buck than trying to influence it the way they had previously. So and Tim Pool is obviously one of them. An indictment was unsealed, not leaked, unsealed by the DOJ. Ever since Trump, it seems like the entire right wing of American politics is having a very hard time understanding what words mean. Unsealed is very different than leaked. Every single indictment that's been sealed gets unsealed. Very few are ever leaked. Almost never. This was unsealed. Poole and that other guy like, oh, they leaked the indictment. Yes, they leaked it by unsealing the indictment per a judge's order and making it public, which you do with every indictment. Okay. So, let's see. I'm going to go now look to... So, what happened? Well, first of all, Biden is going to make an address to the nation on Wednesday to talk about Russian interference in the election. It looks like what he's going to say is that it's about as bad as it was in 2016. It's just taken a new form. I don't know that he's going to say that, but it looks like that's what he's going to say. We know for a fact at this point of one company that has been bought. Now, I guess innocent until proven guilty, but they've got it. So I'm going to argue, and since we're talking a Russian company anyway, I probably don't have a heck of a lot of liability. At any rate, RT, which used to stand for Russia Today, it's one of the biggest news channels or just television channels in Russia. It is state-run and organized. It is a propaganda arm for Putin, period. Russia Today had 2 of its employees in the United States who gave, at this point, we believe about $10 million to Tenet. Tenet is a media company out of Tennessee. It is a right-wing media company. Right now, it is being reported that Tenet, which was founded by a wife and husband team, that both of them had met with the Russians, knew that they were Russian when they took the money, and looks like may have known that they were members of RT, which would be extraordinarily serious. They have not, to the best of my knowledge, yet been indicted, but they are not answering. They're not speaking to the media. They are not responding to the press. They haven't said anything on Twitter or anything since this started. What does Tenet do? Tenet boosts the social profile of various bloggers, YouTubers, stuff like that. In this case, we are aware of, I think it was 4, I want to say, influencers that they gave a significant amount of money to. In one case, it was $100,000 per show, and the show would have to be about the positives of Donald Trump as president or the negatives of invading Ukraine. And so long as the influencer, now that wasn't Poole, that was the other guy. Let me, God, I'm going to try to figure out who that other guy's name. I'm going to kick myself as soon as I find it. I don't know why I'm going to kick myself. I just let Titan know, and he'd be happy to do the kicking for me. At any rate, somebody's going to maybe, let's see, 2 RT employees. So, well, okay, while we wait on that, what happened was that, the indictment is against the 2 RT employees who are in the United States. They are being indicted with 2 things. First is money laundering. They were obscuring the source of the funding that was obviously coming from Russia, and they were sending that money to an American company that was amicable to their beliefs. They're also being charged with acting as an unregistered foreign agent. That is legalese for spying. So they are being charged with spying and money laundering. The last person we really took seriously on this was, I've forgotten her name. She got close to the NRA. I'll remember that one in a minute too. I hope, but. And all she got for it was she got expelled from the U.S. So, we spy on them, they spy on us, and usually, it seems to me that we treat them with kid gloves. The money laundering may have legs, but the acting as a foreign agent probably is just going to get them expelled from the U.S. So, what about the media influencers? What I'd like to do is... Okay, Benny Johnson, Dave Rubin. It was actually 6 commentators linked to Tenet. All right, what is their culpability in all of this? Let's discuss this for a minute. So we've discussed now what RT Media is. It is a media firm, previously just basically a news firm, but it is a propaganda television station, for lack of a better word, out of Russia. They have been banned in the U.S. since the invasion of Ukraine. They were banned in the EU since the annexation of Crimea. They're not allowed pretty much anywhere. 2 of their employees here in the U.S. put $10 million in investment into a company that elevates social media influencers, specifically ones that, and we've got 𝐒𝐸𝐿, so I will welcome him in a minute. It influences, in fact, let me just go make sure that is, 𝐒𝐸𝐿, you there? I do not have it hooked up.
It helps.
Yet. Oh, I do. Hey, it helps if you're not muted.
Yes, it helps if I'm not on a different screen of my phone after having muted the mic in case you brought me in while I was in the middle of trying to wrangle my dog back into the truck. So then it's like I didn't have a hold of my phone, and you're like, "Oh, are you there?" Oh, yes, but let me fumble my phone for a minute or two before, and then I'll just play it off like it was your fault.
Well, to be fair, that was my assumption, was that it was my fault, and I think it's usually a pretty safe assumption. If the audio's not working, it's probably my fault. So, so let me finish with the story, and then I also want to ask you about the shooter. I don't know if you know about the father and about the school shooting, but we'll get into that in a minute. So, it looks like now Tenet has not been indicted. So far, only 2 employees of RT have been indicted. Tenet has not been indicted. It looks like we can expect an indictment, and the reason is because all of the news media that I've seen, and this includes Washington Post, New York Times, USA Today, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, a number of others, have all said that they knew they were speaking to Russians when they were taking the money. So it looks like they're going to get indicted on something. And they've gone dark. So I think that's coming. What about the 6 right-wing commentators that they were supporting? Now, the instinct was, I think this is going to be the same in the live chat as it was mine. Well, gee, of course they knew. But at present, it looks very strongly like none of them knew. And that, in fact, that was partly deliberate on the part of the Russians. Tim Pool, Benny Johnson have said that they're victims. They are not victims. Fuck that. They got a lot of money. But I understand what they're saying, that this was a ploy that they were not willing participants in. And from what I can tell, in what I've seen looking into this, there's no evidence to contradict that. That appears to be very much the case. So what Tenet was doing was finding right-wing commentators, and Benny Johnson in particular was a big fan of conspiracy theories, and has done already like a Kamala conspiracy theory and a whole bunch of, and just give them money to do more of those kinds of videos and to try to elevate these these commentators. These commentators appear to have even tried to negotiate terms. So it looks like they thought they were dealing with a legitimate company. They appear to have not made any effort to hide that they were receiving these payments, and it looks like there was the only requisite was that you actually already had far right-wing views, and that's the kind of person that they were interested in. So that suggests what I said at the beginning, that we're looking at a scheme of, instead of trying to create your own bots that are generating interest somehow, or your own influencers, using ones that already exist that happen to be amicable to your beliefs, and supporting them and giving them all the help you can. Poole does appear to be pro-Trump and has said a lot of crazy things, but he actually does also appear to be very anti-Russia. He said he would absolutely never work with the Russians for any reason ever. Fuck Putin, and Russia can suck balls. What was it they said? He said in Good Morning Vietnam. It's like, I don't know what any of those words mean, but they sound very negative to me. So I think what we're going to hear from them is, hey, look, we were being used by Russia, which it appears they were. I do think that if you're in a position of saying, well, my views are so extreme that Russia thought I was a good person to support, maybe you need to reconsider what you're saying on YouTube. And they certainly aren't victims. They certainly are not victims. They got a lot of money out of this that they may get to keep. I don't know. Because they provided the service, and all that part was actually on the up and up. It was the source of the money that was legal. Anyways, having said all that, Xandering, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Just as I sent you a message going, I've got to run into the truck stop really quick. Keep going.
Keep going.
Like,
okay.
And so we're gonna go to Iceland. Oh shit.
Mm. Well, that's it. I saw the message and I was just like, oh, this would be a perfect time.
Yeah, we can't let him go do that now, can we?
Yeah. Oh no, we can't make your life.
I just got. I didn't realize it was as late as it was, and I just got out of a big canyon coming into Utah, and just got to the parking spot. So everything's crazy.
Oh, all right. Well, if you need a minute, there's let's see, live chat. Let's see, they're in Montreal. Yeah. Well. Who's in Montreal? I had seen someone earlier say that there was the people who own Tenet. Well, Tenet was founded in Tennessee. I don't know by a husband and wife team if they're either in Canada or Canadian citizens. I don't know, but Tenet's actually a Tennessee company. I don't honestly know much more about that. This is all breaking now. So the question we now have really is, okay, we've got a pretty good idea of a different strategy that is being used. So this disconcerting quiet over Russian interference. I'm like, yeah, the war is not distracting them that much. Putin had a lot of success on his last go. He's got to be trying something. What is it? Now, it may be that this was really just a pilot program for them, or that this is. I mean, 10 million is not a lot of money. So, I would imagine that what we're going to hear from Biden is that there have been a lot of companies doing this, and that this is the first in a very in a respectable, at a minimum, series of companies that have been doing this. Is my expectation what we're going to hear on Wednesday? I could be wrong. That's the guess. So, Xandering, if you're back and you got a moment, and what are your thoughts? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, really? Well, I'm not that smart, but thank you for saying it. I appreciate it. You don't need to say that. No. It's been great working with you too. The best you've ever worked with. Oh, that's really kind of you.
It is very kind. I mean, I know that snapping turtles laying in the bottom of Georgia mud ponds are, a high bar to beat for you, but you definitely did.
Ouch. Oh, you could hear that. It was okay. So it was just the mic that wasn't working. Yeah. So any thoughts on? I assume you have some idea of what we're talking about, and any thoughts on it?
I'm actually completely in the dark. I have not had much of the way of service on the phone or anything, so I have not listened to any podcasts. Today has been almost entirely silent, so I have no idea what's going on in the world right now.
Let me see if I can do the 60-second, but I don't think then we will have much to go on because you've heard most of it. So we may go to the other issue, or we could just shoot the shit. I was doing news because you weren't around. RT, which is a Russian
propaganda, yeah.
Yep. Sent 2 agents to the United States. They paid $10 million to an American firm, a legit firm called Tenet. Tenet is in the business of helping amplify social media influencers. Tenet distributed that $10 million to what appears to be 6 different influencers, Tim Pool, several others, all of them on the right end of the spectrum, pretty far right Trump supporters, ones who also said that the war in Ukraine was actually Ukraine's fault, stuff like that, and paid them, in one case, $100,000 per episode if they did an episode specifically blaming Ukraine for the war, specifically endorsing Trump and saying why he's the only president that can save America, or any other sorts of topics. If they did shows that would fall on those topics, they would get $100,000 per show. That was at least one arrangement. There was different financial arrangements with different ones of them, but it appears that none of them, they were, quote, stooges. They actually did not realize that they were, that the money's original source was Russian, and none of them that anyone seems to be able to tell actually ever espoused any views that they didn't have prior to this deal. The point of this deal was to amplify far-right conspiracy and pro-Russia voices. The Tenet was founded by 2 people, a husband and wife in Tennessee, and I guess they may be Canadian, is what I'm hearing. I don't really remember, but at any rate, an indictment was unsealed today against the 2 members of RT, and judging by the language, there's indictments coming up for Tenet. Also, judging by the language, it appears that the government has concluded that none of the 6 people involved knew where the money was coming from, or had any idea that they were unwittingly being paid by Russia. So that's the deal. The latency between us at this point is really quite. Are you hauling like uranium in Uzbekistan or something like that? What, the latency is really disturbing.
No, it's the Mormons.
Okay.
Oh, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. It kind of looks like Pakistan out here.
So what? So any thoughts?
That's really unfortunate for the people. Tim Pool, for example. I mean, he's said the same things forever, for quite some time. So yeah, that was
Benny Johnson and David Rubin. Just to give you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And Benny Johnson.
I know Dave Rubin.
Also.
I don't follow Benny Johnson. I have followed Dave Rubin, and because it was pretty interesting to watch Dave Rubin to go from a pretty lefty guy espousing some pretty lefty things and then watch his slow transformation. You can't discern him from most right-wing people now anymore.
Well, that's curious. I'm curious if the money had anything to do with that. Again, right now, Tim Pool and Benny Johnson appear to be clear.
This has been happening for a while. So this wasn't, unless they did this back in like 2016, 2017, that time frame. But no, that's at least for Dave Rubin.
So on the chance you may know all of them, let me give you the others. There's also Taylor Hanson and Matt Christensen, Lauren Southern.
I know who Lauren Southern is, but I don't follow her at all. So the only two that I've ever actually listened to content from has been Dave Pool Dave Pool and Tim Rubens.
Tim Rubens?
Those are the only two that I got their names wrong. I said Dave Rubin. It's supposed to be
so you slid into the joke. Okay.
Yeah. So those are the only two that I've actually listened to their content. Yeah, that would be incredibly. It would be really shitty to learn that it's like, hey, I got a bit of a sugar daddy. I'm making some good bank here, and there's a really good support for this, and then you get this stuff come out, and you're like, oh, this is not good at all, because I didn't know anything. If they indeed didn't know anything about that, which I don't have a hard time believing that they didn't have any clue.
Yeah, I don't either.
I mean, I don't. At least for Dave Rubin and Tim Pool, because neither one of them strike me as Russia shills. Even not Dave Rubin, but Tim Pool did not support Donald Trump until kind of sort of after the primaries fell apart, and it was like clear that nobody was going to touch Donald Trump. He still he was really had a lot of hope in Ron DeSantis. So that one took him a little bit, but then he's like, at this point, Trump's the only one that I can see supporting. So I don't see anything in there that would make me believe that he was purposely, not that you would probably put that out for public consumption, but I don't see anything overtly that, it's not like he's radically changed his mind on much of anything. And, there's nothing overt about it, whether you like him or not. I mean, I think his biggest criticism is he's oftentimes a fence sitter. He just kind of sits in the middle, doesn't really take a position one way or the other, although he has been taking more positions recently.
Well, I think they've both come out with statements on Twitter. Benny Johnson has said that he will sue anybody who suggests that this was deliberate. He's calling himself a victim, which again, I'm sitting there going, I understand what you mean, but you got a lot of money that you may get to keep. You're not a victim of anything. But I understand he's suggesting that he was not deliberately involved in anything. And Tim Pool basically, he said, and it's a quote, he literally said, Putin's a piece of shit and Russia can suck balls.
Tim Pool's never been a supporter of Russia. He's never been a supporter of the war in Ukraine either, so you can't really call him a supporter of Ukraine. He doesn't think that we should be sending money to Ukraine. That's not our business, and we shouldn't be involved over there. The money is essentially just going to pad warmongers' pockets. So he does not support the war. That's another reason why he supports Donald Trump, because he believes that Donald Trump will end the war.
Yeah, on his first day too. Apparently, yeah. Oh dear Lord! All right, well, so that's it. Since we're not going to get any more, so the president is going to speak. He didn't say he was going to speak on this. What he said was he's going to speak on Russian interference on the U.S. elections, and he's going to speak on Wednesday. He said that at basically the same time that this indictment got unsealed. Poole and Johnson both said it was leaked, And that I found interesting. That's actually, that I will say this. Their use of the term leaked has given me pause. Because I was like, no, these indictments were unsealed. That's interesting is all I'm going to say. I still think that the odds are very strong that they were unwitting accomplices in this. Not even accomplices. They were just, well,
they were patsies.
Yeah, they were patsies. Thank you. So, all right.
I hate to say useful idiots because they do make arguments, whether you agree with them or not. At least Tim Pool and Dave Rubin somewhat make arguments. So I hate to say useful idiots, but they were useful people in search of money to further their shows.
Or stooges. I mean, a con man would just call them a stooge. It's someone who's participating and helping you without knowing that they're doing it. So whatever you want to call them. All right. So
yeah, I would definitely believe that for Tim Pool and Dave Rubin. The other ones I don't know enough about to be able to say anything. But on a plan like this, I guess if somebody were going to try to enact a plan like this, it would make more sense that the people that you're supporting doesn't know why you're supporting them.
You're less likely to get caught the fewer people you tell. Yeah.
You're just going to search out and say, hey, these people have said, has this message or this message or this message. And also if you're trying to not get caught, you would also spread it around a bit so that it's not like you're giving money to, excuse me, to only the people that say, ooh, Russia, great. You would spread it around to people that have a variety of messages, but have at least some messages that you're wanting to promote. And because they'll promote those along with all the other ones. So that way you can't really see a pattern to it. Maybe my mind just goes to weird places and thinking, how could I get away with this?
So the other one I wanted to bring up, the indictment today against the father of the school shooter, indicted on, and this I don't, 8 counts of child abuse, 2 counts of murder 2, and 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, so murder 3. Now, the involuntary manslaughter I get, and one of the things I said earlier in the stream is I think if we're going to talk truly about reducing the number of school shootings, holding the people who let these guns fall into the kids' hands accountable is a key component of that, and that has not been, there's been struggles against that. I have no idea where the murder 2 charges come from. He really would need to pull the trigger to be murder 2, unless, and like I said, DAs will often, DAs will charge the maximum limit that is even remotely justifiable, so that they can then plead down to what they want later. So that's what I'm thinking the murder 2 is, unless there's something to this story that I don't know, because he'd have to have actually murdered someone to get to be hooked on a murder 2 charge. So I don't know, but anyways, that's the dad who presumably gave the kid the rifle. So I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
If he gave, I'm trying to remember which shooting was this one.
Hold on.
It's right on the tip of my tongue, and I'm trying to pull back all of
in Georgia. I forget the name of the school. Is in Georgia. Georgia High School. Let's see. His name is Colin Gray.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm sorry. The father's name is Colin Gray. The Colt Gray is the name of the shooter. He killed, I think, 2 teachers and 4 students.
And how old was he? 14. I'm so behind on the details of this one. At some
14.
point, you have to take a step away from some of those things and just.
I mentioned that In Time has. We used to cover them somewhat frequently, as you know, but we just sort of stopped because it's like it was very damaging to the psyche, and there was no progress being made, and it was always the same, oh, hopes and prayers, thank you, but, and, no.
Yeah, and in this particular case, if they've got evidence that the father gave him the gun, gave him access to the gun.
Let's assume for a second, I doubt he would have given it to him, but yeah, access. So let's assume that somehow the gun. I actually did see a piece of the indictment, so I should look at it. Actually, it wasn't the indictment. It was an officer speaking about the indictment, and what he said was that the father, 𝐒𝐚𝐬, was experienced with this kind of firearm, experienced with the kind of damage it could do, and knew that it needed to be secured and had failed to properly do so.
This is coming from somebody who grew up where all we had growing up, our family had several firearms. My uncle was a sergeant major in the National Guard. He was the command sergeant major for the state of Wyoming. He was a game warden. We all went and hunted and fished. It's like my 14th birthday present was a .22 rifle. Because at 14 I can go small game hunting. So, I mean, I grew up and all of our guns were just in a gun rack on the side of the wall. There wasn't a trigger lock on any of them. They weren't locked up. There was no gun safes. They were in a gun rack on the side of the wall. And we're talking about guns that are far more powerful than an AR-15. AR-15 is an intermediate cartridge. It's not a particularly powerful rifle. You get a 30-06, that's a bit more powerful. We had a 7mm mag, 300 Winchester. So we had these large caliber, powerful hunting rifles. All the ammunition is in the storage chest right below it. So growing up, none of this stuff was secured. And had I taken one of my dad's rifles and went and shot somebody with it, nobody would have ever questioned whether my dad was at fault for any of this. I would have been blamed for it. Because everybody has access to their firearms. You just don't lock them up. Now we've changed quite a bit where it's like, well, now all of your firearms need to be locked up. Washington State attempted to pass a law, and I'm not sure how exactly you would enforce this law except post facto, where your firearms have to be secured. Even if I live alone in a studio apartment, I still have to have a gun safe that's bolted to the floor to lock my firearms in, even if there's nobody else there to access them, because, well, somebody might break in. It's like, well, if they're doing that, they're already committing criminal. Anyway, so yeah, there's been quite a bit of a change and a shift. Well, I'm sure there hasn't been in Wyoming. Wyoming takes a long time to change, but so yeah, it's a little bizarre to me that they're charging the father simply because he didn't lock his guns up. Now, I don't know exactly all of the evidence they had. I don't know, is there a long history of problems with the child acting out or having mental issues or anything? Was there some reason that the parents should have known that their child was unstable and should have ensured that there was no access to any firearms? This is one of the trials that I would like to watch and see what evidence, what are the arguments that are being made, because I am undecided on like mandatory gun storage type laws. I see arguments on both sides, and I'm not exactly sure where I come down on it. Right now, I'm like, you should be, I don't see how the law can really, except again, post facto, how the law can force you to secure your firearms. And then of course, that's always an after the fact. Some other law would have to be broken before you would ever be able to be charged with that. Because they can't just walk into your house and check.
The good news though is, I mean, for me, it wouldn't take more than a few shootings like this where the people who had let the child have access to the firearms, even or it had granted access even if it was not deliberate, and have those post facto prosecuted before you would see a drop in school shootings, because parents would say, because now that it's moral hazard almost. I guess I'd argue it's the inverse of moral hazard, where they're sitting there saying, now because I have skin in the game, I'm going to take that extra second.
Parents are responsible for the actions of their children. I mean, like if you go into a museum and you let your child crawl over and break a painting or a sculpture or something because you weren't keeping any kind of watch on them, you're at fault. You're going to be held liable for that. I mean, there's a very strong history of parents being held responsible for the actions of their children. So at least there's precedent on that front, as far as you allowed your child access to a firearm, you didn't pay close enough attention to them, and they took that firearm in and killed a bunch of people. So yeah, you're gonna be standing right there next to them.
And the other thing I will say, my father was a lawyer, and I remember growing up, just because you told a growing up story, so I've got to tell one because it was interesting, because I saw a shift. When he started practicing law, there were no metal detectors in courthouses. He was like, and nobody ever chained the suspect. No matter what the suspect did, nobody ever did it. Nobody worried about a suspect really trying to flee or do anything like that, because the way the system was set up and the way they sort of believed in the system was, well, I've always got an appeal. I've got a chance of something good happening if I'm good, so I'm going to be good. And that really actually worked. And so, he wouldn't ever hesitate being alone in an elevator with somebody who was, convicted of 16 murders or whatever, because it just wasn't, it was almost sacred being in court, and nobody would ever do anything. And he said he remembered when the first metal detector went up. And he was just like, what's happening that our society is changing, and now you have to defend courthouses. And now it's reached a point where obviously everybody going into any courthouse in the United States gets searched for guns. And you may sit there and say, well, obviously, duh, courts are pretty fucking contentious. Only it's actually a new thing. It's only within the last 20, 25 years. And in the entire history of courts before that, there weren't any shootings. Even when the guy got convicted, he didn't sit there, grab the bailiff's gun and make a run for it. Those things were extraordinarily rare. Now it's assumed they're going to do that. So they just like, okay, we're going to shackle you up. And so so because of that change in culture, if a court decided we're not going to have metal detectors because, well, they didn't used to have them, so why should we need them now? You'd hold that court responsible if somebody came in and shot a judge or shot a lawyer or shot an unfaithful spouse or anything like that, any one of which all of us could imagine easily happening consistently if we removed the metal detectors that are now there.
Yeah, I do wonder how many. I'll have to try and look that statistic up. How many school shootings are performed by an underaged minor stealing their parents or relatives or a friend's, stealing somebody's gun to go commit their shooting?
I remember that being relevant to a discussion we'd had before, but I don't remember what the numbers are. Yeah, sorry, please.
Yeah, I cannot remember. I'm trying to dredge, because that's not normally a statistic that I would look too closely at. Probably would have found interesting, but I'm not coming up with even a faint recollection of how many of those there have been. Because you just mentioned, prosecute a couple of these people and send the parents to prison along with their children for it, and you would quickly see a lot of other parents locking their firearms up, because
not
going to take the chance, parents, and that would cut down.
Because I forget who it was. It was a guest we had on, and someone they knew had, or was it maybe you talking about a truck? I think you had told me this story. I don't remember. It was a pickup truck, and a guy was visiting with family. He had a gun. He had it licensed. He was not required to secure it. I think you and I had this conversation, and you basically said he was an idiot for not realizing that somebody might go into his car. So what had happened was he just left a loaded, like 9mm or something like that, on the seat of his pickup truck. Got out, was hanging out, and a 7-year-old kid, member of the family, who was at the picnic, whatever, said, "Oh, I want to see what's inside the truck." Opened up the door to the truck while nobody was looking, climbed in, found the gun, shot, and killed himself. And I'm thinking that if you're aware that if somebody uses your firearm to hurt another person, that even in a situation like that where that guy didn't have kids, that guy didn't have, but you'd sit there and say, I'm not going to leave a gun that, let's just say somebody, a thief comes by my car, grabs the pistol, and it was unsecure, and I could be on some level liable for that. I have to believe people are going to take, now that they've got skin in the game, take securing their guns a little more seriously, and that in instances that they couldn't even really have imagined, because, hey, he doesn't have kids. He's almost never around kids. He just happened to be he was visiting with family. I think he was, actually, if I recall, he was out of state. And, he had an aunt and an uncle. They had a 7-year-old kid who climbed in, found it. It was right there. I don't know, thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, that's why I don't have a firm conviction. When it comes to some of the laws, the way that they're set up is like in my house. I don't have children. Don't come to my house. Nobody really comes to my house. I know it's like my one of my rifles is my 22 is sitting right there, and there's a shotgun sitting right by my wife's desk. Those aren't secure. Now the wife does actually secure them in the closet when we have company come over. So, but some of the laws are written up where it's like, okay, well, the point of a home defense, say shotgun, for example, a reasonable firearm for home defense, a shotgun, so you're not over penetrating through walls. It's a reasonable firearm to have.
It's reasonably easy to hit a target even in the dark if you know roughly where it is.
I mean, you still have to aim it, but it's a reasonable firearm. I mean, we're not talking about some weird, strange, 50 cal AK. Like, it's not a funny or unusual weapon to have. Well, it sits there leaned up next to the wall in case it needs to be used, and it is completely loaded, because if you need to use it, you're not going to have time to load it. So some of the laws that are put out there are like, well, that's an unsecured gun. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, it's not. And if she goes to bed and it's still out, and let's say a thief does manage to break in quietly enough, past the dogs and everything, and steals the gun and goes down to the Quickie Mart to rob it and ends up shooting and killing somebody, it's like, well, now you're going to victimize my wife twice. Not only did she get burglared and her property stolen, but now you're going to charge her for accessory to murder or felony murder or something because she didn't lock the gun up for a gun that was specifically out for self-defense. So some of the ways that these things are, so the laws are written, I have a bit of a problem with. But then you also have a very valid argument of, well,
on the other hand,
on the other hand. So yeah, that's why I'm like, I don't know exactly. I would have to get into the nuances of each individual proposed law to find out whether I would support that law or not. But I'm not opposed to supporting them.
And well, my view on this, which is, I think you're 5
No
times
guns.
more likely. Yeah, no guns. And you're 5 times more likely. I mean, if you have a gun for self-defense, you're actually 5 times more likely to kill a relative than you are an intruder. And but if you have a gun in your house for self-defense, you are 100% likely to think that you are in the 1 in 5 who actually will use it for self-defense instead of the 4 in 5 who's going to kill a family member. But that's the same as, what is it, like, no, actually, I think the real statistic is something like 78 or 79% of drivers rate themselves as above average. Which I was surprised it was that low. Just like, it's not like 90% of drivers are above average, but okay. Oh, Jesus. Oh, well, anything that you wanted to discuss? I know you came in late. Like I said, I wasn't planning on doing news. I was just gonna, shoot the shit on whatever. There was something that I thought of, but now it's past it because I've just gotten my head into news.
Oh, it was. Let's see. Yeah. Well, I was sending you a message like, "Man, you should have called me." I didn't, because I did not realize it was quite as late as it was. And I'm in a hurry, so I've been trying to get back to pick up some batteries. So I'm cruising through, sent a message, "Oh, you should have called me so I could have been on time." And then I just thought about what I drove through, and I was like, yeah, I couldn't have been on time because I was literally driving through the canyons of the Wasatch Mountains, and yeah, I wouldn't have been able to maintain a connection at all.
So someone in the live chat, Lynn S., I'm curious where Lynn S. is from. I said this conversation is completely is foreign. Foreign to me, and I'm just like, American gun culture is interesting, and it wasn't until I spent a lot of time, not a lot of time, but enough time in Europe, but specifically the UK and or some in Italy, where I was just like, oh wow, it's a different thing, and there are a lot of reasons for it, but
a whole bunch of for long periods of time as well.
Yep. Oh, and yes, Annette. It's been a busy day for a lot of people. So, and in fact, I'm going to need to get going at this point pretty soon anyway, because it's going to be another busy day tomorrow. We're going to be doing breaking news if any happens. We are waiting on Biden to tell us whatever it is he's going to tell us on Wednesday. But like I said, the strong suspicion is he's going to be discussing the indictment that was unsealed today, and I think highly likely going to suggest that there was a great many more companies. It's unlikely that Russia was just like, okay, we're going to put $10 million into one company. RT has more than $10 million, and one company is not. But I mean, those are some pretty big guys. So I suspect.
So you mean Wednesday the 11th? So like
yes.
6 days later, he's going to talk about it. So not a particularly important topic then.
Well, that's why I'm thinking he's going to talk about something.
To coach him and give him stims so that he'll be able to stay awake that long?
Ouch! All right, where's the mute button again? No, I'm not going to hit the mute button because every time I hit it, I'm the only one who gets muted. I swear to God, the Titan somehow has control over this thing because it's like mute guest number 2, boom, and all of a sudden my mic cuts out. No, I think it's because that's one of the reasons. I mean, if this were the only example or even the biggest example of this kind of interference, Biden would have said something today when it got unsealed by the Justice Department. The fact that he's making a speech on Wednesday suggests to me that they're about to unseal a whole bunch more. And why this one came first, I don't know. Are we going to expect a cascade of these, or in just one day a whole bunch drop? It looks like it's just going to be a cascade. I don't even think that they're and in fact there's issues with trying to coordinate this kind of thing anyway. It's not even legal to do that. So my suspicion is we may even see another one before Wednesday, and then on Wednesday he's going to say, I would not be surprised if he said dozens of firms doing this. It may be less than that. I'd be surprised if it was a lot more than that. And I'd be very surprised if he just said, okay, we just caught this one company doing. No, he'd have spoken today if that was it. So I've been wondering what the hell's going. I mean, the Russians didn't just stop, so why haven't we heard anything about it? So my suspicion is on Wednesday he's going to explain. And what I think he's going to explain is they've changed strategies. They've been buying up small media companies and using them to prop up social influencers who have the views that they most want amplified. And I think that's what he's going to tell us. And I think he's going to give us several examples more than just this one. You fucking smart. You know, if he were like a true conservative, you wouldn't be making fun of him or his age.
I want to bet.
No, I know you would. You've actually got integrity, which just really kind of sucks when I'm trying to make fun of you.
Yeah, that's why I can't support Trump. Aside from the fact that he's not a conservative.
Yeah, well, he's not a conservative. He's barely human. A tangerine that was mutated somehow, and I mean, I don't know, but yeah. All right. Well, thank you all.
I still like R and Ra's description of him, even though I don't actually think that it's quite correct, but I still found it hilarious. Was the marmalade Mussolini?
Yeah, marmalade Mussolini. That's a good one. We need to figure out what Agrippa would call him. Agrippa was the best at naming people I've ever seen. There's a blast from the past. All right. So,
what is those Spring-Ons and Ways-Offs or whatever they were? Is that guy?
I don't remember. My suspicion is we'll be able to cover the. I can check right now. We should be able to. I don't see why we wouldn't be able to. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we should be able to cover that live. So we'll be covering that and doing our usual commentary on whatever it is that he has to say. If for some reason we can't cover it live, we'll do a rundown of it later. And we'll also be doing. We have our new co-host for a while Lance is laid up. So thank you very much for joining me as Andring. And you've said like 20 times. You've said, Nick, if you need to get a hold of me, call. Do not text. And because you're a conservative, it goes in one ear and out the other. I'm just not trained yet to actually listen. Yeah, to what you're saying. So it's just sort of like, I think he said something, but it's his handwriting. I mean, it's just like, who really pays attention when the guy talks? I don't. Oh.
I don't usually pay attention when I talk.
Yeah, I've noticed. All right. So, thank you.
How else can I be a conservative?
It's when he steers into them, and then I can't fucking do anything. Son of a bitch. So thank you all so much for joining us. It is a pleasure to be doing these Thursday nights again, and every Thursday, usually 8 p.m. depends on if whoever's co-hosting with me has an issue and we move it up to 9 or whatever. But we'll definitely be doing that. We will bring you updates on whatever it is that Biden has to say. We are also starting to look at who's going to cover. We're gonna cover the election day. Going to cover it live. We do that all the time. We are going to rotate through a number of the usual suspects. We're going to rotate them through.
And like that, he's gone.
So we'll be doing that on Election Day and any other breaking news, of which I imagine as tensions increase and everyone's worried about the election, we're going to see increasing numbers of. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you again, as Andring. Any final thoughts before we go?
May you live in interesting times.
God, yeah, tell me about it. All right. Have a good night, all, and we will, while you're here, if you get a chance to hit the like and subscribe, it really does help. That's why we ask. And thank you for joining us and for your support, and we will see you guys, barring any breaking news, knock on wood, we'll see you guys next week. Good night.